What is the creepiest, most disturbing internet rabbit hole you've gone down, and why? NSFW. I bought my brother a tased from Amazon for his birthday one time. Looking at some of the questions, there was one asking if it hurt. The answer went something like, "It does not. I've tased myself in the neck 30 times. Very interested in this, I go to his Amazon profile where you can see what else he has reviewed, and he reviewed a katana and stuff like that of similar nature. Still interested, so I type his name into Facebook and find a profile with a picture of him holding his katana. The first thing I notice is that he's from my city. Second thing is there are so many people posting to his Facebook saying he's the devil and they can't believe what he'd done and that they hope he rots and stuff like that. Extremely interested at this point, I Google his name and find news articles that he stabbed a guy in the chest in his apartment with a katana, then fled and was later caught by police. Turns out he was very delusional and really needed help. He's now in jail, and according to the article looks like he's getting the help he needs. It was a very wild ride from just looking at the stupid questions people ask about products on Amazon. Blogs by people who are obsessed with losing limbs and or having them replaced with hooks, etc. Some went through with accidents where they mashed their hands beyond repair in order to achieve their goal. Reminds of that guy from South Africa who had a blog I came across a few years ago. His thing was amputations, and he badly wanted to get his perfectly healthy foot amputated for whatever reason. He felt like it didn't belong to his own body. He would inflict injuries to his foot by cutting it with a knife, then put it in a bucket full of his own poop to cause infection. It was all documented, with daily pictures. You could literally see the daily progression of his foot rotting and becoming black. Until one day he stopped posting. He came back a few weeks later and wrote he almost died. He had passed out because of a bad case of sepsis, blood infection, and his landlord found him in the bathroom. Crazy stuff. And yes, he came back from hospital with his foot amputated. Looking up pictures of people who hit the ground after falling from great heights. I looked it up mostly out of morbid curiosity. Definitely would not recommend for anyone with a weak stomach. One of the worst things I've seen is a video of a guy trying to commit suicide by jumping off a building, but he lands on one of those big concrete bollards and it literally goes inside him. There was even a close-up in the video of him still alive with this huge lump in his shoulder from the top of the bollard. There's a doc called The Bridge, which captured 23 of the 24 suicides from the Golden Gate Bridge in SF in 2004. Apparently the bridge is a wildly popular suicide site. By 2004, there had been more than 1,200 suicides, with a 98% death rate. Anyway, it's really dark and sent me on a little research expedition of the suicides. Apparently, the 2% that survive say they instantly regretted jumping midair, and that starts to make you think about suicides and how much pain people are in to take that step, and yet there is a shock of clarity once they've done the irreversible. Just reading about that desperation and sadness triggered so much in me, I really can't go down those rabbit holes anymore. Pulled up a site once that had pictures of celebs that were taken after they died. The most prominent one I remember being that of Chris Farley. Fuck, that's something I'll never forget. My brother killed himself with a friend last Halloween while hiking Mount Rainier. Their bodies were discovered by some hikers who proceeded to upload pics of their bodies to a gay death fetish site. I guess some info got out, but now every week I get people contacting me about his body, asking me if I have more pics or blaming my family for his death through whatever social media they can find, mostly his memorial page. It can be extremely mean. It doesn't bother most of my family much. We know how to deal with trolls and perverts, but it destroys my mom. Never forget the purpose of the communities you visit. To you, that celebrity site is just a passing curiosity. But this is a site with an active community that seeks out corpses to wank to. They are highly fucked up at best, and are likely extremely dangerous considering some of these threats I've gotten. Holy shit, I'm Ben's sister. Man, what are the chances I'd meet you for the first time like this? I'm so sorry this is how we meet. I'd like to help you and your family out any way I can. even if it's just jumping on Discord and chatting. I can't fly out due to work, but nearly anything short of that is on the table. Please tell me if you'd like the parent post removed. I'll do so in a heartbeat. Absolutely not. Like you said, we are used to dealing with trolls. I want the world to know their story. But wow, that was crazy reading your comment. I was like, did I write this? We should definitely talk sometime. I'm on Messenger under my real name. Add me. Saudi Arabia's leading executioner, Mohammed Saad al-Beshi. He mostly decapitates people with a sword. I watched, read interviews with him. I wanted to know if that shit haunts him. No, it doesn't. He's already teaching his son to follow in his footsteps. His children also help him clean the blood off his sword. Then I started looking into what was considered capital offenses and other punishments used. Stoning is one. Certain crimes will get the beheaded body crucified. If I'm getting beheaded and crucified, that's the order I'd prefer. Cave diving accidents. They're always tragic and sad and insanely common in the community due to the dangers of cave diving. But they have been to some of the most untouched areas of Earth, and I kind of get the need to keep exploring even if it's dangerous. I read about a pair of blokes who realized their line had snapped and they were trapped in an air pocket with only enough oxygen for one of them to try and escape for help. Dude had to wait in the pitch black for hours not knowing if his friend had reached help or died along the way. Scares the crap out of me. I can barely bring myself to swim under small stuff in safe swimming pools. I've never tried diving and I really don't think I could conquer that fear. Unit 731. What they did is really fucked up. In other tests, subjects were deprived of food and water to determine the length of time until death. Placed into low-pressure chambers until their eyes popped from the sockets, experimented upon to determine the relationship between temperature, burns, and human survival, electrocuted, placed into centrifuges and spun until death, injected with animal blood, exposed to lethal doses of X-rays, subjected to various chemical weapons inside gas chambers, injected with seawater, and burned or buried alive. Getting placed into a centrifuge and spun until death sounds horrendous. That story and the story of the dude who ultimately died when he ended up stuck with his head down in a deep awkward cave makes me feel intensely claustrophobic. I would want an instant death switch I could hit rather than suffering like that. The Nutty Putty Cave? Reading that still haunts me. Deaths on Mount Everest and how a lot of the bodies are still up there. This was a wiki rabbit hole I fell into after listening to the Case File episode on David Sharp. Read not only about him but also Green Boots, this couple that got separated, etc. Due to the extremely cold temperatures, the bodies aren't that decomposed, so they still look recent even though it's been years or decades. It's creepy and sad. Some bodies have been there so long they are used as markers for climbers. What is also sad is that there have been efforts to remove them, but doing so is extremely dangerous because of the altitude, temperatures, and uneven ground. People have died attempting it in the past. Not sure if they've managed to succeed since I last read about it in 2018. Edit, I'm not 100% sure the podcast was Case File since I listened to the episode I mentioned 3 years ago. It could have been another true crime podcast. Also thanks for my first Reddit award. It's absolutely fascinating and disturbing to read as a mountaineer. In 2010, I was just above Camp 3 on Aconcagua, tallest mountain in the Americas, when I got lost in the blizzard. I had altitude sickness. I was so weak, exhausted and now lost, that I got stuck in a big snowdrift and just sat down. I closed my eyes and one of my last thoughts was how peaceful everything was. It's scary how close I came to being a frozen corpse on a big mountain. I'm so lucky that the guide I was with managed to find my tracks before they got filled in, made it down alive. Is it morbid that I'm happy or that your almost last thoughts were peaceful? I like to think that the people who died on Everest also had peaceful thoughts before they passed. I don't think it's too morbid at all. I hope they did. I was almost too exhausted to panic, if that makes sense. Once I was in that snowdrift, I felt a bit of sadness that I was leaving family behind, but I wasn't scared. Despite it being so frigid, I felt warm and knew that it would be mostly painless as I would drift into sleep before passing in the cold. I don't know how much of that was the altitude sickness or the beginning of hypothermia. Thankfully, the guide was able to find my emergency steroid injection, used in cases of really bad altitude sickness, and Camp 2 had a permanent structure that was insulated. I don't remember much of the journey there, but once I was safe and warm, I started feeling more human. Haha. A straightforward guy wrote down his experiences with heroin. Basically he wanted to try it for fun and he was sure that he had enough willpower to stop after that. Well, he was wrong. Probably someone can remember the name of the guy or the Reddit post. It's fairly well known, I believe. Same thing happened on a Norwegian forum. Some guy asked how to shoot up, and the thread turned into a years-long diary of him becoming an addict and failing to quit. Then he just stopped posting and sometime later it was revealed he had died. Turned into a media case for a while. His mom was interviewed and stuff.